Okay.
Okay. All right. Did you were able to see the PDF I sent you earlier this morning? I have not been able to open that up yet, but I will take a look at it. Okay. So we'll go through it quickly on video, and then we'll send you the video so you can use the video. So what we just put together here is just a quick overview of the data we've collected with Orange Beach, just high level quick stuff showing the progress that I think we've been making, and we're really wanted to get across, and then also show you some of the things we're starting to implement, that I think we could talk about a little bit more in depth at a later date, that we think are really useful for the department, and we can go into. In general, we've done 4 cohorts over the last couple of years, each with about 12 officers assigned, not always having all 12 officers complete each train though. Yes. In general, the first cohort, we had 11 officers with, had 75% accuracy. That was March and May of 23, where they did about 94 questions each. Cohort 2 was in July and August of 23. They were one of the highest performing cohorts at 79%. Cohort 3 was in April and July of 24 at 78% accuracy. That was 10 officers did the training then. And this last cohort did all their training in April of 25. And we only had 6 get on the platform. There's still time to get more on, but that's where we're at. And they also performed highly at 79% accuracy. Okay. So that's where we're at across the 4 different cohorts. We also have a slide that's going to be hard to just talk without you seeing it, but we break it down by the question types. So by constitutional, policing, tactical, vehicle stops, de-escalation, DUI, use of force, mental health, domestic violence. We break it down by each cohort and by how each cohort is doing. And one of the easy trends we see is that the most recent cohort 4, is really performing very well against the other cohorts. There seems to be a progression of, with each of these cohorts, we don't know who these officers are and who you're assigning each of the cohorts, but there seems to be a progression of higher accuracy as we go through these cohorts, which is just interesting to see. In general, when we look at which type of question the cohorts are generally doing the best at, it comes down to tactical, really is the highest performing, along with vehicle stops. And we could dive into this a little bit more in depth when we have more time, but this slide really just shows you a quick overview of all 4 cohorts against the different question types they've been doing.
And you'll have that in the video that we're going to be sending you the link to afterwards, Sergeant. But overall, it's a great job in terms of, how they've been adapting to this, and, whatever kind of, procedure you've been working with them on it. It seems to be working, and it's working better with each additional cohort.
Yeah.
So I think that's really the top line, bullet point to pull out of all that.
Great. All right. Well, like I said, we're a younger department, and they're very eager to learn. So the amount of stuff that we're putting out to them, they're obviously retaining it, mm-hmm. and doing a good job at decision making. So
yeah, no,
with what we're seeing on the platform.
They definitely are, and I think and Jordan will show you a few other top performers here in a second. But I think just in terms of the time management thing on your end. There is a big opportunity with some of this kind of one-on-one review of the data that we've been doing, to give that younger department that is trying to retain info faster the opportunity to do so. And it takes a lot of kind of burden off organizing and stuff like that at the sergeant or lieutenant level. So we could talk a little bit more about that. But basically what we do in those one-on-one sessions, which you guys basically have part of your service this year, is to have them sit down with us and look at their own specific numbers in terms of how they're doing. So just thought I'd throw that out there, because that is something that could fit.
really like to move forward with that. I'll talk with the division commander about that, getting that set up because being the training coordinator, they see me so much, and we talk about it so much. If it comes from someone different, you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They rotate the feedback, I think, in a more positive way than sitting down with the same person all the time.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's one of the reasons we've seen it work so well. So instead of sitting down with the same person every time, they get a little different perspective when they either meet with one of us. Even within us, some of us have different foci when we look at the numbers and talk about, their most recent stops, and they can relate what they're doing in the program to what they're doing out on the road. So we'll send you a Zoom scheduler link is with the mechanism we use for that. And they can just book a 20-minute time to do it. And they meet us on Zoom, any one of us who are available. And it's, usually during regular business hours kind of range of time. But they get a lot out of it, and it really keeps the engagement piece up, and it gives them a different perspective. So they're not, meeting with the same person every time.
That sounds great.
Okay. All right. We'll definitely take care of that for you.
Right, so we'll zoom through some of these sort of high level stuff. So we on this slide we're just highlighting the top performers. So from each cohort we list the officer number that was the top 3 in each cohort. So I'm not going to list the numbers out as they're probably not going to make as much sense just straight over the phone. But this you'll see the top performer slide where we go through each cohort's highest performers, and usually those accuracies are in the 80% range, 79% usually being the lowest of the top 3 performers. But in cohort 2, we have accuracies up to 84%, which is really, really good. We at the beginning of working with Orange Beach, I think constitutional policing was one of the focuses that we wanted to have with the officers, and so a lot of the scenarios that the officers see are front-loaded with constitutional policing questions. And so one of the things we looked at was at the beginning of the officers' training versus the end of the officers' training, how did their accuracies change? And overall, across all the officers, we're seeing a 12% accuracy, a 12% increase in their accuracy from the beginning of the training to the end of training. For constitutional policing questions. And if we look at a specific officer, we see that training increase over time where it takes about 20 questions for the officer to really pick up and reach that higher baseline from where they started. And so that's just us seeing that learning process actually happen. And we show 2 different slides from 2 different cohorts, 2 different officers from the different cohorts, where we see that same trend where it takes about 20 questions for like that information to really click in, and then we see that higher baseline.
Now, Sergeant,
watching the learning process.
Yeah, now, Sergeant, I wanted to ask with the going back to the constitutional policing side of things, even though we are making great progress on the the individual officer basis, we are doing subsets of officers at a time here. So, I mean, in what you're describing about, them seeing you most often with the training coordinating side of things, if there is kind of a group setting in which you're doing some of the work with the officers, like whether it's a roll call or some other kind of format, we have a slightly different version of E-Train that we've released over the last 6 months now that allows you to do a scenario. So let's say it's like you want to focus on constitutional policing, whether it's vehicle stops or pedestrian stop, to be able to talk to them directly and do a frisk if you need to. And the E-Train Classroom is the tool that we've made to do this. And what it does is it basically allows you to run through the scenario, but each individual officer that's there would connect to that video they're watching on, let's say, a TV or a computer monitor with you in a classroom setting. And they're answering the questions directly on their phone rather than up at a big screen or like raising their hands in class or something like that. So it allows the kind of, right now we're doing asynchronous training where everybody's doing it on their own device, and we're looking at the assembled results here together on this video and on this phone call. But the E-Train classroom, it really allows you to do synchronous training with everybody in roll call. And you could actually stop the video after everybody's answered the question and talk about what theme or of element of that stop or that frisk or whatever it is on the constitutional side you wanted to hammer home with them. So that's something we wanted to, we're hoping to show you today on video. It's a little hard to do on the phone, but I think at some point it could be something helpful to, because we're doing subsets of officers right now, and you're already meeting with everybody. So if you have this tool, you might be able to get that information out to everybody quicker, and you're there to kind of guide them along the way with the scenarios like you've seen in E-Train, with the individual officers. So do you?
If you want to send me the video over, and I've got the list of names. You'll send me a list of where they're at and what score, their percentile of score within the program in each section. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can do that, but yeah, and there's no problem to do that. I think with what we're explaining with the E-Train classroom side of things is that it would be something that you'd run live, and we can actually show you when you're at a computer, and you can see it on video. But it's a tool that you can actually use that everybody else in the department who you want to get this information about constitutional methods and things like that.
Well, now we do a normal roll call anymore. They just respond into the city, so it would have to be where they did it from their in-car computer. You know what I mean? In a roll call situation. So
okay.
It wouldn't be in a classroom setting.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, and as you'll see when we meet by video next time, we'll actually run it for you through video, through virtual, and so they could either be all in the same place, or in the case of not being at the same place for roll call, they could all be in their cruisers. We've done that before too.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I think you'll like it.
I need to break away, but let's talk. We'll schedule something soon, and if you'll send me over the information, I'll get with the division commander on it. Okay?
Yep, sounds good. We'll send you that Zoom scheduler link for the one-on-ones, and we'll go from there with the classroom. Okay?
Good weekend.
You too. Have a good weekend.